Okay, so I get a lot of questions daily asking how powerful a PC has to be able to game and stream from a single PC setup. And newsflash, it's not really that hard, man. And I'm gonna show you exactly how right after this intro. Get it. Now, the first thing you guys need to know is definitely the difference between X264 and NVENC. And I'll give you guys a brief description on both. X264 basically is running your stream through your computer, your CPU, and NVENC is basically running it through your GPU. And let me give you guys a tip. If you guys are on a one PC setup, you guys definitely want to be going through NVENC. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're running your stream through X264, basically what's going on is your computer prioritizes gaming over everything. So your game's gonna use up most of your GPU and it's gonna use up most of your CPU. And basically, and that's even before you start streaming. And when you start streaming, it's gonna add an additional load to both. And it's basically gonna bottleneck both of the resources that's running your computer. And that's what causes lag and different errors in that case. Now you're probably thinking, Freeze, what's the difference between X264 and NVENC? Like, why would NVENC be different than X264? NVIDIA comes out with a certain encoder, right? So basically, when I told you guys that the GPU and the CPU both get used, and then once you start streaming, it adds an additional load and it bottlenecks your CPU. So what NVIDIA did was they added something called the NVENC Turing architecture to their GPUs. And it's basically like another little capacitor. So basically when you start your stream, the little NVENC encoder handles that encoding that usually will put pressure on your CPU and GPU. If that makes any sense, it basically like takes the load off of your CPU and GPU when you're streaming. Well, when you start streaming. The second thing I want to talk about is animation rendering. And basically how much of a load it puts on your computer just using animated layouts, overlays, effects, all of that simple stuff. Okay, so basically it's not a bad thing to go static. Static basically means that your layout is just plain, nothing's moving or anything like that, because when you go static, it causes a lot less lag on your computer and your GPU. But once people do animated overlays, they go with animated alerts, they start adding animated GIFs. All of these things take up CPU usage on your computer. And what you need to know is the more animated alerts and stuff you add to your stream, the more CPU usage you are going to take up on your computer. So in these days when streams are looking really clean, I would have to say a lot less people are going away from the wow factor when you come into their streams. Going static might not be that bad, you know what I mean? Especially if you're on a one PC setup and you're struggling for resources when you're gaming and streaming at the same time. It definitely might be a good idea just to lower the amount of alerts and overlays and everything. You can also go to Stream Elements and consolidate all of your entire alert into one overlay and then just put it right into your Streamlabs, and that'll save you a ton of resources. So, number 3, close the preview window. Okay, I know it might sound crazy, but when you're gaming, okay, when you're in game like this, you got to understand that if you can close this, right click it, disable preview, or if you're in OBS, you just right click it and enable performance mode. It's the same thing. If just by turning off this screen right here, you're allowing your computer to free up so many resources because it was also rendering this screen while you're streaming. Okay. So disable your preview. That's all I can say. And for my last tip, so simple. You guys are probably gonna smack yourself when I tell you, but I'm just gonna tell you anyway. I'm gonna jump right into it. So when you're turning on your Streamlabs, what you want to do is basically just right click on Streamlabs, right click it again, and run in administrator mode. That is it. That is the entire thing, right? I know you guys are looking at me like, Freeze, what? Run in administrator mode, why? So basically what you're doing is when you run your Streamlabs in administrator mode, basically telling your computer to give Streamlabs all of the attention are all of the priority on your computer. So basically, you won't drop frames in OBS. You'll only drop frames in game. You'll kind of notice it. It's a weird give and take, but at least your stream won't be laggy. Like everything, yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty much everything. Those 4 tips right there should definitely help you if you are struggling on a 1 PC setup, and you should definitely be streaming with ease. Make sure you guys follow my Twitter, Freeze on the Beat. Follow my Instagram, Freeze on the Beat. Follow my Twitch, Freeze on the Beat. We talk about these things, man. I usually spend a lot of time in just chatting. Come holla at me, man. You know? I hope these tips helped you guys out. As always, peace and love.